An awful lot of white people who would really like to know. Maybe not so, so much in the sense that they demand black history themselves, because they can't really be interested in it. I don't look for a white person to be so interested in something that has to do with black people, because he's not educated that way. He's not brought up that way. He lives in his own community. He goes to his own school. He dates his own women, except for when he wants to slip out and find something interesting. In the same way the black man slips out to find something interesting. But then there's a heavy-handed all-white treatment that just isn't fair, you see.
Today we are going to watch a clip here from 1990s of Bill Cosby talking about how racism and privilege, white privilege specifically, has affected blacks in America. He's talking about how it has impacted the education sector and also the film industry. Here is the clip. I want you to watch, then let's come back and talk about it more. Let's watch.
Bill Cosby was interviewed by Stuart Thomas in 1968 before the presidential election. Cosby's comments on the election and presidential politics still hold true today.
Well, it's just sad, that's all, man. Because I don't believe any of them. I think they're all lying to everybody.
Yeah.
I think Wallace is lying to the white bigots. And they're out there talking about George is going to do it. Because George ain't going to do it.
True.
Now, who was that cat today? I read in the paper. It was the president of the NAACP up in Connecticut, shaking hands with George. Wallace. Did you see the picture? This picture of the cat. I forgot his name, man. Shaking hands with George. And I said, well, in Connecticut. Now, what is this all about? When George is talking about he's going to run over us with his car, which is going to be funny to see that,
Definitely.
Because the cat's talking about he's going to be president of the United States of America. And this is the man that the bigots are voting for, see. Now, this shows you how much class bigots have. They're going to vote for a cat who will say, George is going to just keep them niggas in their place. How? George is going to run over them with his car, man. And I believe he's going to do that, because George is cool. And he will run over them if they give any trouble. Nixon, I think, is a pathological liar. Man's got to say some lie about something somewhere.
12 years. All I've read about are white people, And now we're going to have this course, and this course is 20 weeks long. And you say all you can give us is 1 or 2 books by black authors because you don't think there are any other reputable black authors out there, What is that to tell me, It's the same thing all the other kids are going through in the schools. Because all they're being told is that, well, there's no one else out there that's really writing anything that's literature. They're writing a whole lot of garbage.
Sure.
And like I suggested to him, Eldridge Cleaver, Soul on Ice. Well, he says that's not literature. He says just a whole lot of writing.
What about Man-Child in the Promised Land? There are an awful lot of white people who would really like to know. Maybe not so, so much in the sense that they demand black history themselves, because they can't really be interested in it. I don't look for a white person to be so interested in something that has to do with black people, because he's not educated that way. He's not brought up that way. He lives in his own community. He goes to his own school. He dates his own women, except for when he wants to slip out and find something interesting. In the same way the black man slips out to find something interesting. But then there's a heavy-handed all-white treatment that just isn't fair, you see. Now, when we talk about a book like Man-Child in the Promised Land, that was like my neighborhood. The same cats that he talked about, had cats in my neighborhood the same way, with the gang fights and so forth and so on. Drugs, we never really came into contact with drugs the way Brownie's book did, because most of the cats I hung out with, we were hitting the ball or chasing the ball or something like that. I came into contact once with marijuana. It was a Thursday night dance. I think I was like 13 years old or something. Had on all of the hippest stuff, man. My pants way up, the Daily News in my right pocket, had my Jeff on, and I was looking bad and smoking my father's Camel cigarettes, And this cat came up to me and said, give me a light. And I noticed that the butt he was smoking was kind of short. And I offered him a cigarette. I said, don't you want to? He said, no, man, this is fine. You know, and I put my cigarette up to his, and he made that noise, you know, and I shot out of there so fast, man. You know, but the importance of black history, I mean, you just can't measure it, man, because then, and I think this is why people don't want to serve it, and they don't want to put it out, because then most people will really realize that we have done something, you know, as a group. When they say we, I include all of us, man, because, you know, the cat's going to vote for Wallace. He's talking about keeping niggas in their places, see, or keeping the nigga in his place. He's not talking about everybody except Bill Cosby. No, he's jealous because Bill Cosby's got some bread, too.
Yeah.
He's jealous because Harry Belafonte's got 2 Cadillacs or whatever. And he just assumed that this whole country be all white, you see. I just feel that if we can get the history put in, that isn't the only thing, but that is a very important thing, man. And it's an example of the racism and bigotry that exists in this country, right, because look at how harmless it is, you see, to say that a certain person did something and they did this and so forth and so on, and make it a part of an exam, but they refuse to do it. Before, last year, I excused the teachers and the school system for it because, you know, you have to be prepared. Yeah. And I said, okay, if you don't have it this year, all right, that's because you're not prepared, but you have the summer. You know, go to your library, go to the reserve book room, read, find out, you know, black heroes in World War II, black heroes World War I, so forth and so on. Men who have invented things. The real black man who was with Lewis and Clark.
Right.
The cat who went to the North Pole, how much he did, so forth and so on. Let's get all this together, man.
What did you think, or what were you told as a kid about the Amos and Andy show?
First of all, this is going to take a while because you have to run down, as a black man, as a black boy, what the thought was in order to get through to the establishment and to gain acceptance. See, in the 40s and the 50s, most black people were trying to gain acceptance. So the idea was to imitate the black. I mean, whatever you want it to be. You want to be a black businessman, so you spoke as the black businessman would speak, and you would dress as he dressed with the 3-piece suits, and you would act that way to gain acceptance, you see, and you would talk, so forth and so on, and you wore an Ivy League haircut the same way that he did, and so forth and so on. Well, coming into the late 50s and the 60s and finding out that we're so disillusioned by what is happening, because prejudice and racism, of course, it does not exist in all white people. But there's enough that kicks everybody in the backside so that you know that there are enough people who are against you because you are black, that you become paranoid, which is not an evil word to say, because there are white people who are paranoid, white, Jewish, Irish, or whatever. They're paranoid about who they are and what people are going to say about them. I happen to feel that man himself will always be against somebody. If we all had black skin, brown hair, brown eyes, everybody included, we'd still be after the dude with the freckle or the bent toe. There would still be somebody we were trying to do that pecking order thing with. I liked Amos and Andy. I did not see them as ignorant blacks. See, but that's a different way that we accept certain things. I mean, there are certain routines that I can tell on a stage which deals with an all-black audience that I would not tell on television. Wouldn't allow it, because there are some white people who would laugh at that and say, yeah, that's them, and that's why they ain't going to get the so forth and the so on. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So Amos and Andy had to be taken off, although I enjoyed it. Although in the confines of my own home, we might say, yeah, Brother Andy, we're going to do the so forth and the so on. But we don't want the white people laughing at us, because so far, it's just America has allowed these people who are against us to still exist, you see. Now, we run into busing problems. I can understand every white bigot's problem with busing. I can understand every white person who doesn't want their child to go to all the way across town to that school because they moved away.
Do you have to be a bigot to be against busing?
Not necessarily, but my next step is this. There are enough bigots who use the genuine cat, and we have black people who have bothered to run and hustle and save and move away and get away from the rats in the project and the plaster falling and so forth and so on, which is every man's right to do, to move out of there. And they too are affected by this busing thing, because you may have some middle-class black kids who are now being bused back to where the dude moved out of. You understand?
Yeah,
I'm not saying that these people have a right to. All I'm saying is that there is a solution to this, which the government itself has not made an effort or a step to take care of. So we all, I believe, are at each other's throats because the government has not laid down the laws of this land as far as the Constitution is concerned. We still put up with people like Wallace. We still listen to folks like an Agnew. And I really mean that, the things that he said about... No, wait a minute. I don't want you to clap for any of these things, because these are my thoughts, and I don't want you to take sides. I just want you to think about what I'm saying. For instance, the things that Mr. Agnew has said at times, if you weigh these things, you know what he's saying, and you know why he's popular in certain places. You know that when certain people argue about, well, they're taking over, there's no way that all of the black people can ever really get together as well as all of the white people can get together and go down and kill, so forth and so on. Ain't no way. I think it's the silliest thing in the world for somebody to get riled up because two black men show up with a gun and we're going to kill everybody. That's some kind of fantasy that you've laid out that you know in your heart it ain't going to exist. You tell me and prove to me that black people are violent and that they're going to take over, and I can open up the New York Daily News and show you white people who are killing their daughters, their husbands, their wives, their children, killing each other off. Well, if we put that in the paper and make it black and white, which is where the whole thing happens, it's in the paper. If a black man does something, it says, John Jones, black this, said black, 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 and did the black, black. Now, if a white man does it, it isn't white man Jones, it's just a man. Nondescript, just a regular old raggedy man, went out, killed his two daughters and his wife, and shot himself. Now, if he does that, then everybody seems to just either sympathize with it or let it go out the window. But if a black man does it, then any white bigot can point his finger and say, see that? There they go again. Well, that isn't right. It isn't right. And it isn't right to try and let America go this way, because as a black man who is becoming a school teacher who is aiming to teach not only poor blacks but poor whites as well and treat everybody equally, I mean, I can't bring it upon myself to say, well, because I've suffered, and I'm going to kick this little white kid, and I'm going to step on him. Or somebody's mother comes up and says, Mr. Cosby, I enjoyed your show. Or for me to look at her and say, well, you're trash because I know all of your people. I don't live that way, and I try not to teach my children to live that way. Aha! But they are aware.
Of those feelings.
They are aware of the feelings. They are aware of who they are. But it just isn't racially. So we have to take Amos and Andy off. We have to, at times, look at a Bill Cosby on I Spy from the late things and say, well, this guy doesn't have a girlfriend, he doesn't have a this, he doesn't have a that, so therefore he is as. We have to ask for things that are black on TV, because there are things that we don't see, you see. Now, in New York, it's much hipper than most places. You know, you can turn that dial quite a bit, man, on the cable TV and see quite a few black things going on. Sure, they're on at 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning or whatever. So what? Anyway, it is there, and it's moving a step higher. But by the same token, you can't really be white either. You sitting here, you can't really be white. You know, you're not really yourself.
When we come back, because we've gone beyond this station message, tell me what you mean by that. We'll be right back.
So if you've watched Bill Cosby for over some time, you'll know that he's somebody who has significantly influenced the discourse on race and identity. And his contribution is well marked. So Bill Cosby significantly influenced the discourse on race and identity for Black Americans through his multifaceted career as a comedian, actor, and public figure. His breakthrough came with I Spy in the 1960s, where he became one of the first Black leads on a television series, subtly challenging racial stereotypes by portraying a competent, intelligent spy. This role helped pave the way for more diverse representation in media. Cosby's most impactful contribution was arguably The Cosby Show of 1984 to 1992, which depicted an affluent African-American family, the Hugstables, living in Brooklyn. The show broke ground by representing Black characters in positive, non-stereotypical light, showcasing their professional success and strong family bonds, thus offering a counter-narrative to prevailing media portrayals of Black families of the time. This depiction helped foster discussions about class, education, and the Black middle class within American society. However, Cosby's later years have been marred by numerous allegations of sexual assault, which have complicated his legacy. These allegations and his subsequent conviction, later overturned on appeal due to procedural issues, have led to a re-evaluation of his contribution, sparkling debate on separating art from the artist's personal actions and how his influence on Black discourse must be viewed through this new controversial lens. Despite this, his earlier work undeniably opened dialogues on race, class, and representation in America. So we know who Cosby is and how he's impacted Black people's lives. And I think we have to understand the value of depiction in the media as Cosby did, because earlier on, Blacks were represented as people who are very unintelligent, people who did not have class. But because of representations that were done by people like Bill Cosby, we are seeing positive representation and positive coverage of Black people in many, many aspects. So tell me down in the comment section what you think about this. And if you're watching us for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and also share. Thank you, and may the good Lord bless you. Goodbye.